Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashotatara Shishimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashotatara Shishimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Maharaj Ki.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Skaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki.
Jai.
Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki.
Jai.
Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki.
Jai.
Ganga Maya Ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Jamuna Maya Ki.
Jai.
Bhakti Devi Ki.
Jai.
Sidevi Ki.
Jai.
Harinam Sankirtan Ki.
Jai.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki.
Krishna.
Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Hare Hare Bol.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories, the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Hare
Shri
Hare.
Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nityanamane Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shatatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nityanamane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Welcome, devotees. Good morning. Thank you all for coming on today for the Sri Caitanya Charitamrita class. I'm going to share the screen in just one moment. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Ram Rama Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Very bold.
So we're continuing our study here of the 6th chapter of the Madhya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The setting is, and there was just an address made by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He spoke to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 7 days, in which Lord Chaitanya listened very patiently, to him speak on the principles of Vedanta through the Mayavad perspective. And now Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking, and he speaking on the tattva and what he now he's educating Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So, Nishanga Prabhu,
Yes.
would you like to read the Bengali?
Yeah. Anandangshe Ladini, Shodangshe Shundhini, চিদংশে সম্বিত যারে জ্ঞান করি মানি.
Translation. The three portions of the spiritual potency are called Ladini, the bliss portion, Sandini, the eternity portion, and Samvit, the knowledge portion. We accept knowledge of these as full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. To acquire knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must take shelter of the Samvit potency of the Supreme Lord. Even knowledge about Krishna comes from Krishna. Krishna says, from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So even this knowledge that we seek from Krishna, about Krishna, ultimately relies on the mercy of Krishna to deliver us. Text number 160. This knowledge is a certain potency called the Samvit potency of the Lord. The other potencies were discussed briefly before last week. Text 160.
Antaranga, Chi Shakti, Tatastha, Jiva Shakti, Bahiranga, Maya, Tine Kore Prema Bhakti.
This spiritual potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead also appears in three phases: internal, marginal, and external. These are all engaged in his devotional service in love. Purport. The spiritual potency of the Lord is manifested in three phases: the internal, or spiritual potency, the marginal potency, which consists of the living entities, and the external potency known as Maya Shakti. We must understand that each of these three phases, the original spiritual potencies of pleasure, eternity, and knowledge, remain intact. When the potencies of spiritual pleasure and knowledge are bestowed upon the conditioned souls, the conditioned souls can escape clutches of the external potency, Maya, which acts as a cover obscuring one's spiritual identity. When freed, the living entity awakens to Krishna consciousness and engages in devotional service with love and affection. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. I'll just pause for a few moments and say a few words on this verse. It's very important for us to understand these three different potencies. And we're hearing different groups of three. We heard the potencies of the Ladini, Sandini, and Samvit Shakti, which represent bliss, eternality, and also knowledge. Now we're hearing another three phases of that spiritual potency. And the reason this is important, specifically in the context in which Lord Caitanya is describing to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, is because from the Mayavadi perspective, everything is all one. There is no variegatedness. There is no breaking anything up into categories or the functions in different ways. And what Lord Caitanya is putting forth here is that according to the Vedic scriptures, the Supreme is full of different types of potencies. But yet you are saying that they are all one. even to the point where the conditioned soul, or Maya, is so powerful that that this potency of Maya is just as powerful as the others. And here, what Srila Prabhupada is, well, what the verse from the purport, and then the verse, and then the purport, where Srila Prabhupada is explaining that actually the spiritual potencies, when this the spiritual pleasure, the sandini, and the knowledge, the samvit, are bestowed upon the conditioned soul, which is a marginal potency, that the soul can actually escape the clutches of Maya. That Maya is not, and that Maya is subservient to ultimately Krishna, because Maya is a potency of the Supreme Lord. That the Supreme Lord actually does not come under the control of this energy called Maya. Srila Prabhupada, he when he spoke about chanting of Hare Krishna, I'll pull this up real quick. He says it very nicely. He says that many of you heard, this is an original from 1966. He made a recording about the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We won't read the whole thing, but it says the transcendental vibration established by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the sublime method for reviving our transcendental consciousness. As living spirit souls, we are all original Krishna conscious entities. But due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now adulterated by the material atmosphere. The material atmosphere in which we are all now living is called Maya, or illusion. So this illusion is one of those, is that third potency that was described. Maya means that which is not. And what is this illusion? This illusion is that we are all trying to be lords of material nature. Well, actually, we are all under the grip of her stringent laws. When a servant artificially tries to imitate the powerful master, he is said to be an illusion. We are trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in her complexities. Therefore, though we are engaged in the hard struggle to conquer nature, we are more dependent upon her. This illusory struggle against material nature can be stopped at once by the revival of our eternal Krishna consciousness. And then he says that the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, the chanting of the Maha Mantra, is the transcendental process for reviving our original pure consciousness. It will clear all the misgivings from within the heart. I thought this was very nice in connection with this verse, because it explains our challenge in this world, what Maya is, this third potency that that is being as Krishna's, as being described here. How the marginal energy, which is the living entity, has come in contact with this Maya, and is now under the influence of that, thinking that it is in control of this illusion, and that is the master of it. So there's the Purusha and there's Prakriti. The Krishna is the Purusha. All those other energies are the Prakriti. But when the Prakriti thinks that he's the Purusha, when the energy feels that it is the source of the energy, or the energetic, that's where the illusion sets in. So in this world, the spirit souls, that is us, the marginal energy, we are under illusion. But that illusion can be lifted by the mercy of the spiritual or internal energy. And that comes to us in different ways. But the most merciful form in which that comes is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And by taking to the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, by dedicating our lives to cultivating the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the conditioned soul can escape the clutches of the external potency. Srila Prabhupada says in that talk that it can happen at once. And the reason for this is that Krishna, being in control of it, can actually pull that Maya potency away from us. He can release us from the clutches, from her clutches. Any questions or comments before we move on? Text number 61. Anything anybody would like to add?
I just want to say, Prabhu, it's yes, we have heard by chanting, you can go away from Maya's clutches, but it's is there a time definition?
Srila Prabhupada says it can take place at once.
Okay.
But we may question that and say, well, it doesn't happen for me at once. So is the potential to happen at once? Yes. But we have to take it into perspective of our own attachments and our own level of wanting to release ourselves from this Maya. Krishna may be wanting to release us, but we may be wanting to hold on. I mean, take for instance, we're giving opportunities all around us to engage in the service of the Lord, to hear about Krishna. We are given the opportunity to engage in the service of the spiritual master, in the movement of the spiritual master. But yet we still cling on to habits. And one of the reasons why is because our duration, our exposure to this material world has been for so long. It hasn't been 1 or 2 lifetimes. Srila Prabhupada, he gives this term time immemorial, meaning that we no matter how far we stretch our minds to try to understand, we have been in this swimming in this material pool to the point which we're just saturated with material desires and entangled with thoughts about our own well-being, how we feel that this one, that we're in control, and the other is that this world will give us pleasure. So even though we get these opportunities and sometimes tastes of the sweetness of Krishna's service, we often don't fully take advantage of it. And so the question could be, well, why does Krishna even allow us to have that? Why can't he just strip us of these false desires to want to, enjoy this material world? Why can't he just take those away from us and allow us to, just come back to him? He knows what's best for us, but yet we're sitting here continuing to make a mistake. And that is explained because this free will, which is part of the identity of the living being. We're part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna has supreme free will. We have minute free will. Our free will gives us the choice to choose between Maya and Krishna. Why doesn't Krishna take away this free will and just put us back with him? Well, that would strip us of our spiritual identity. And also, Krishna wants us back under the condition that we want him and that we're willing to put aside. So the opportunity is there immediately. The choices we have in our life, we have to look at and say, am I ready to drop this? Am I willing to drop this grudge that I have with this individual? Am I willing to drop, the desire to continually to advance in this material world, thinking that this is what's going to bring me happiness? Am I willing to make the instructions of the spiritual master my life and soul? The first instruction and most important instruction from the spiritual master is to chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, a minimum, follow the regulative principles. Am I willing to make that, cultivating that instruction where I can really meditate upon Krishna and nothing else without offense? Am I willing to work on that and cultivate that in my life? And oftentimes we may discover that we're distracted in this conversation and that conversation. We're distracted in the news of what's happening in this world, or trying to advance materially. And we don't take these so seriously. So these are some of the reasons why it doesn't take place. Any thought? Do you have any follow-up to that? Any thoughts, or would anybody else like to make any additions to what I said?
No, I think it makes sense. Thank you, Prabhu.
Other thing, Prabhu, that if Krishna gives that, then our independence, man independence will go away.
Yeah.
Because then Krishna can. So Krishna doesn't want to take our independence, whatever he has given, and he doesn't want that everybody should come to me, He wants us to come by our own will. That will be more better rather than force, that otherwise it will look like Krishna is forcing, to give up the material world and don't get attached to anything in this material world and come to me, So Krishna doesn't want to do that. And that is the genuine reason. Probably Krishna doesn't want to get it involved with these things, Whatever independence, whatever you want, do it. If you want to come to me, I open arms, come. And if not, then enjoy the material world.
It's a very nice point. It's because Krishna is a person, right? And we have to think of ourselves in that situation, even though we're kind of conditioned. But as people, if you had to force your husband and wife, to love you, if you had to force your children to love you, you wouldn't really feel that they loved you. They're only doing it because I impose some type of force or conditions around their freedom to force them into this relationship with me. And Krishna, he doesn't require that, because he's Atmaram. He's completely fulfilled. He wants us back, but he's not going to take away, like he said, Kavaya Prabhu. Very nice. Thank you. Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a nice discussion is happening. When this will go away, right, Maya? One of the things I realized that, first of all, we accept I'm under the influence of Maya. Many times we deny, isn't it? I think denial is the cause of being the situation where we are all the time. Many times it says Chakshudana Dilaje Janma Janma Prabhu say Chakshudana Dilaje means the spiritual master or masters, they help us. It's not just they give Krishna prema, they show us the weeds we have it. But unfortunately we don't accept. And I'm talking myself, it's very hard to someone who says, oh, this is the issue you have. It's very hard for me to recognize that I'm under the influence of Maya. When the doctor says, you have this disease, if I don't accept, then I'll continue to be in the disease condition only. I think first step is accepting that I am under the influence. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives us very gradually the process how we can come out of it. In the path of Saranagati, he explains us. In all the songs he has written is basically making us realize, hey, you accept first that you are ordinary soul and you have been under the influence of Maya, you've been thinking you're the enjoyer, and making us humble.
Yeah.
I think that's what my point is. Thank you.
That's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that. Especially when we look at these songs by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he expresses how fallen he feels he is. And we can ask ourselves, when we read these verses, oftentimes we think of other people. Oh, I wish so-and-so would feel this way. I wish this devotee would feel like this. But that's not what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is doing. He's saying, this is the way I feel. He's applying this to himself. And your point is very relevant and important, that we should understand that we are caught in Maya. I am the one that's trapped in Maya. We often think other people, and due to my inconveniences and the disturbances that I'm feeling, it's due to the Maya of others. But it's true that we are the ones that are trapped in Maya. It's the disturbances of others, Adi Bodhik. These are one of the kleshas that are brought about by one's existence in this material world. But our identification with that is due to our being in this illusory energy. None of these things actually happen to the soul. They're all taking place on the bodily conception of life. That bodily conception of life is the illusory energy. Thank you, Prabhu. That was really nice. Anyone else would like to share something? Okay. Let's go on to text 161.
সর্ববিধ ঐশ্বর্য প্রভুর শক্তি বিলাস হেন শক্তি নাহি মানো পরম সাহস.
Translation. In his spiritual potency, the Supreme Lord enjoys 6 kinds of opulences. You do not accept this spiritual potency, and this is due to your great impotence. So that when he says, you do not accept this is Lord Caitanya speaking to, who is it?
Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, right? And he was explaining, he says, you do not accept the Supreme Lord's spiritual potency. And it's okay. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full with 6 opulences. All these potencies are on the transcendental platform. To understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as impersonal and devoid of potency is to go completely against Vedic information. 6 opulences. We all know them. Let's just quickly refresh our minds. You can call them out as you remember them. I'll go first. Strength is 1.
Renunciation.
Renunciation 2.
Knowledge.
Knowledge is 3.
Beauty.
Beauty is 4. Somebody said something right at the end there. I didn't catch it.
Wealth.
Wealth. And what is 5? And one more? Fame. Very good. So here, again, Lord Caitanya is instructing Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and he speaks strongly. I mean, to call somebody impudent means that they're trying to make, they want to make decisions on their own. They're trying to figure things out on their own. They're not following. They're just disagreeable people, you just want to disrespect authority. You just have this tendency just to go figure it out and do it yourself, instead of just following the path that's been laid before you. So, the Vedic conclusion, Lord Caitanya is speaking, from scriptures. And so he's saying, because you're not accepting this, it's because, you're earlier on, he explained the same principle, that you're not taking the words of the scriptures directly. You're using your own interpretations to manipulate the words. And this is how you've come to your conclusion, which has become very confusing. And this is one of the tricks of Maya. Again, this desire to want to lord over, not understanding that all knowledge comes from the Supreme Lord, and that in order to receive this knowledge comes from the mercy of the Supreme Lord by surrendering to the Supreme Lord. That due to our limited minds, we can manipulate, interpret, digest, and then ultimately share this information, thinking that we have understood. What kind of pride does it take? What kind of illusion does a person need to be under? So these are the points that Lord Caitanya is bringing forth. And you have to understand, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a very well-respected individual. I mean, he was the Pandit of Puri. He was the head priest. So to speak like this, this is due to your great impotence. Lord Caitanya, he's choosing his time to insert himself, to speak, directly and strongly to him. Text number 162.
Mayadhisha, Mayavasha, Ishware Jive Bhed, Hano Jive Ishwar Shaho, Kohoto Kobhed.
Translation. The Lord is the master of the potencies, and the living entity is the servant of them. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. However, you declare that the Lord and the living entity are one and the same. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature the master of all potencies. By nature, the living entities, being infinitesimal, are always under the influence of the Lord's potencies. According to the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1, 1 and 2, Dvasuparna Sayuja Sakaya, Dvaya Suparna Sayuja Sakaya, Samanam Riksham Parishashvajayate, Tayur Anaya Pipalam Swadav Ati, Anashnan Anyo Bichak Shiti Samane Vrikshe Purusho Nimagno Nishaya Chati Muyaya Munaha Justam Yada Pashati Anyam Isham Asha Mahimanam Ite Vita Shoka. The Mundaka Upanishad completely distinguishes the Lord from the living entities. The living entity is subjected to the reactions of fruitive activity, whereas the Lord simply witnesses such activity and bestows the results. According to the living entity's desires, he is wandering from one body to another and from one planet to another, under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma. However, when the living entity comes to his senses, by the mercy of the Lord, he is awarded devotional service. Thus, he is saved from the clutches of Maya. At such time, he can see his eternal friend, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and become free from all lamentation and hankering. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 18:54, where the Lord says, Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma Nasochati Nakanshati. One who thus is transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. Thus, it is definitely proved that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of all potencies, and that the living entities are always subjected to these potencies. This is the difference between the Maya Disha and the Maya Vasa. This Maya Disha is the Supreme Lord, the Maya Vasa is the Lord's energy. Does anybody have any questions about what was written here in the purport? Srila Prabhupada is using the Upanishads to substantiate this statement. And we'll also find this in the Bhagavad Gita very regularly. Second chapter talks about the qualities of the living entity. And then we'll also read in the 15th chapter as well, extensively about the living entity, and how it's part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and that there's fallible and infallible living entities. But beyond that, there's actually another living being, who is the source of all of the other living beings. This is established very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita, the difference between the individual soul and the super soul. And the super soul accompanies the individual soul here in this material world, but doesn't come under the contact of the modes of material nature like the individual soul comes. He's transcendental, untouched. Even is situated here in this material realm, the Supreme Soul is untouched. And he's guiding according to the living entity's desires, from one body to another. Is the Supreme Soul the person who is creating this situation? He facilitates based on the living entity's desire through the instrument of karma, which is carried out by material nature. And then Srila Prabhupada says, however, when the living entity comes to his senses, it gets its wake-up call, realizes that, this is not a place where I can become happy. I'm an eternal being situated in a temporary world. I cannot become satisfied here. Then is that same super soul who has made these arrangements for the living entity to try to enjoy here in the material world. That same super soul then awards that living entity devotional service. An example is the two birds sitting in a tree. The one bird is just witnessing while the other bird is enjoying the fruits of the tree. Sometimes the fruits are bitter, sometimes they're sweet. When they're done with one tree, they fly off to another tree, as one goes from one body to another. At some point, the one's bird who represents us, the spirit, the living being, he says, I've been doing this lifetime after lifetime, going from one tree to the next, and I'm still not happy. I'm still not satisfied. Then he looks to his friend, his eternal friend, the super soul, and says, can you help me out? And at that point, that's when spiritual life awakens. It sounds so nice, this Brahmabhuta platform, where we're transcendentally situated in a joyful state, completely fixed in Krishna consciousness, where we lament nor desire nothing other than the service of the Lord. Any questions or comments? Or thoughts? Okay, let's go to the next verse, text number 163.
গীতা শাস্ত্রে জীবরূপ শক্তি করে মানে হেন জীবে ভেদ কর ঈশ্বরের সনে.
In the Bhagavad Gita, the living entity is established as the marginal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet you say that the living entity is completely different from the Lord. Purport. The Brahma Sutra states that according to the principle of the Shakti Matur Abheda, the living entity is simultaneously one with and different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Qualitatively, the living entity and the Supreme Lord are one, but in quantity, they are different. According to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy of Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, the living entity and the Supreme Lord are accepted as one and different at the same time. This is a topic which we have spoken about before, about the simultaneously oneness and difference, this Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Qualitatively, we are one. Quantitatively, or potency-wise, we are different. Difference between a drop of water and the ocean is not in the chemistry or the chemical makeup of that particular water molecule, the ocean, but one molecule you can hardly ever see, where the whole ocean is so strong and powerful. Any comments, questions on this? Again, I know that we've spoken about this, but I want to make sure if there's any misunderstandings or confusion about this, that we can clarify them now. Okay, if you do have anything, please don't feel shy to ask. We'll continue on, 64.
ভূমির আপো অনলো বায়ু ক্ষয়ম মনো বুদ্ধির এ বাচা অহংকার ইতিয়াম মে ভিন্ন প্রকাশা।
They switched up here, giving us the Sanskrit of the Bhagavad Gita. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego are my eightfold separated energies. Anybody tell me, where we find this in the Bhagavad Gita? Which chapter?
7.
7. Thank you. Text number 65. More Sanskrit from the Bhagavad Gita. Sringa Prabhu?
पारे यम इतस्तो अन्नम कितिम विद्धि जीवा भूतम महाबाहो या यादम भारत भार याते जगत।
Besides these inferior energies, which are material, there is another energy, a spiritual energy. And this is the living being. O mighty armed, the entire world is sustained by the living entities. Purport. Verses 164 and 165 are quotations from the Bhagavad Gita, 7, 4, and 5. So I also gave reference to the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where this is also discussed. It can be used as another reference. 15, 16, and 17. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In this material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as the Supreme Person. So these references are there for us. I have a feeling that the devotees on this call, we are educated in this area, and the doubt, this may not really be so much of a doubt of ours. So we don't have to stay on it unless anybody wants to discuss it. But we should be conversant, and where we can find these verses, these references, and on this philosophy, so that we can share it and speak it to others, to help them understand. Okay, let's move on to text 166.
ঈশ্বরের শ্রী বিগ্রহ সচ্চিদানন্দকার, সে বিগ্রহে কহ সত্যগুণের বিকার।
The transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is complete in eternity, cognizance, and bliss. However, you describe this transcendental form as a product of material goodness. Text 167.
শ্রী বিগ্রহ যে না মানে সেই তো পাষণ্ডী, অদৃশ্যে অস্পৃশ্য সেই হয় যমদণ্ডী।
One who does not accept the transcendental form of the Lord is certainly an agnostic. Such a person should be neither seen nor touched. Indeed, he is subject to be punished by Yamaraj. Purport. According to the Vedic instructions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has his eternal transcendental form, which is always blissful and full of knowledge. Impersonalists think that material refers to the form within our experience, and that spiritual refers to an absence of form. However, one should know that beyond this material nature is another nature, which is spiritual. Just as there are material forms in the material world, there are spiritual forms in the spiritual world. This is confirmed by all Vedic literature. The spiritual forms in the transcendental world have nothing to do with the negative conception of formlessness. That's an important statement. I'll reread it. The spiritual forms in the transcendental world have nothing to do with the negative conception of formlessness. The conclusion is that a person is an agnostic when he does not agree to worship the transcendental form of the Lord. Actually, at the present moment, all systems of religion deny the worship of the form of the Lord due to ignorance of his transcendental form. The first-class materialists, the Mayavadis, imagine 5 specific forms of the Lord. But when they try to equate the worship of such imaginary forms with bhakti, they are immediately condemned. Lord Sri Krishna confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 7:1-5, where he says, Namam duskritino mudaha prapadyante naradamaha. Bereft of real knowledge due to agnosticism, the Mayavadi philosophers should not even be seen by the devotees of the Lord, nor touched, because those philosophers are liable to be punished by Yamaraj, the superintendent demigod who judges the activities of sinful men. The Mayavadi agnostics wander within this universe in different species of life due to their non-devotional activities. Such living entities are subjected to punishments of Yamaraj. Only the devotees who are always engaged in the service of the Lord are exempt from the jurisdiction of Yamaraj. This is a very wonderful purport. Has a lot of points here. We may not have time to cover all of them. This idea of material and spiritual can be thrown around without definition. If you go just speak to a regular person on the street, they'll have their conception of what material means and what spiritual means. If you go to a yoga studio, if you go to a Buddhist center, if you go to a New Age Sangha, they'll have different conceptions of what material and spiritual. We have to be able to see it from the eyes of the scriptures. What does material mean and what does spiritual mean? Material has no is still an energy of the Lord, but it has no consciousness. Spiritual has consciousness. There are two categories of course, those categories can be expanded as well, but two categories of spiritual. The living entity, the marginal potency, which is tatashta, which can fall under the influence of the material. And then there is the tattva, or the category of the Supreme Lord himself. Now, there's also the point here that the spiritual forms in the transcendental world, we cannot compare them to the material forms we experience in this material world. In this material world, we see that our material forms bring us suffering and bring us pain. Relationships that arise from these material forms bring us trouble. It brings us sickness. It brings us mental anguish. One of the first steps as a person tries to figure out this world is that they want to negate the things that give them trouble. They want to get rid of them. And being that our bodies, which are forms, gives us trouble, we want to be in a situation where we are bodiless. Our relationships with people, they give us trouble. If you don't believe this, just think of your last conversation with somebody where you're complaining about a person or what a person has done to them, or done to you, or is doing to other people, and how it's affected your life. You probably don't have to go back very far to think about that. We just want to be done with these relationships. We want to be done with these bodies. We're fine with just kind of just merging into nothingness, because at least it'll be without difficulty. It'll be without pain. It'll be without, confusion and letdown. The spiritual form and the spiritual world are completely different. So we can't use our minds to come to this conclusion. We have to see it through the eyes of the scriptures. The spiritual forms, we're Satchidananda. It's this vigraha. There's this form, but that form is made out of eternality, bliss, and knowledge. We can't quite understand it here, but the spiritual world is full of variegatedness. So the agnostic, an agnostic means it's a little bit different than an atheist. Agnostic is a person who they don't deny or confirm the existence of God. They believe that there's not enough conclusion to make that type of decision, that you can't. So it puts you in a place of limbo. An atheist makes a very strong statement that there is no God, and they come up with their arguments and reasons why. But an agnostic comes to the conclusion of inconclusion. There's no way to find out. There may be, but there may not. But also there may not be. Speak about the Mayavadis. And part of the Mayavadi process is that they may devote themselves to one of the deities: Vishnu, Ganesh, Shiva, Durga, Lakshmi, Surya, and devote themselves. But this devotion is really just to purify their particular form, but then ultimately it's to separate themselves from such worship once they are purified. So bhakti is simply just a stepping stone that they use. It's really not bhakti. It's not bhakti in the truest sense. But the external ceremony of bhakti is utilized. So that's why they're immediately condemned, because they're performing bhakti without knowledge and for the true purpose of performing devotion, which is meant for the pleasure and reigniting our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And such people are considered to be the actual this duskritino, mudha. They're the greatest fools, because they have access to the Vedas, they have access to the scriptures, but they are not taking advantage of it. And then, of course, this idea of Yamaraj, only the devotees who are always engaged in the service of the Lord are exempt from the jurisdiction of Yamaraj. We should be careful of this. Coming back to a statement that was made earlier by Krishna Kirtan, when we say that we should see ourselves that we are in Maya. We shouldn't just think, well, I'm excused from Maya, but everybody else is in Maya. Because we may have a little bit of knowledge or we do a little bit of service. Similarly, we shouldn't be thinking that everybody else is subjected to the jurisdiction of Yamaraj, but I'm free. We should be very careful in our estimation of ourselves, and not overestimate our devotional prowess. We're actually quite weak. It's actually only by the mercy of the spiritual master that we have this opportunity to engage in devotional service. Where would we be? On whose strength are we standing? Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya. It's by the mercy of the spiritual master and spiritual master's disciples and devotees, the sadhus. We have to see this. We have to work very hard ourselves. We have to serve very hard, and we have to stretch ourselves in Krishna consciousness. We have to overcome our temptations. We have to overcome our challenges. We oftentimes know what they are, and we have to take them. We have to work really hard to overcome them. At the same time, it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord and his pure devotees who are engaged in the service of the Lord. That is our strength. We should not simply just think, I'm out of these conditions, these things don't apply to me. Okay, stop here. It's 9 o'clock. This purport, we probably should have waited till next week because it was long and involved. But thank you all for staying on, and those that you were able to stay. And if there's any questions or comments, Mother Sangeeta, I see that you're on. Thank you for listening and staying on. Is there any words that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Very nice class. Thank you. I was just thinking that when we're following the principles and chanting at least 16 rounds a day and coming to the Sunday feast and like that, and we're feeling that, yes, well, we're on the road, we're on the path back home, back to Godhead, I'm doing well. As the longer we're doing that, these subtle attachments surface in our life. And we have to be very careful of that, because there is a lot of times they become they're on an offensive level. They're envy. Envy is a big thing because that's why we're in the material world. We were envious of Krishna. We were there in our Leela with Krishna, and one day we looked at him and said, "Why is it about him? Why isn't it about me?" So we bring that envy with us into the material world, and the same mind goes with us, but life after life. So all of these envious, our envious nature follows us. And so even though we could be chanting our rounds regularly and even attending the morning program every day, we have to be really careful of these subtle attachments, just because we've cleared away the gross attachments and we're following the principles, and these are the gross things, but these subtle attachments and aparad need to be also examined, and that takes a lot of internal work. So that's what I came to by listening to your class, and I really appreciate you giving such a nice class so that I could remember that.
Thank you for sharing that with us. You explained it really nicely.
Did I wasn't sure how I was going to
No,
present it, but
very nicely and concisely.
Mm.
Um, Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Very important for us to remember. So that is definitely a trap of Maya, is that we start practicing devotional life and then we feel that we're all of a sudden, free, or that we're special in some way.
I remember when I joined in 1972, and I was told that as long as you wear tilak on your forehead wherever you go, you're actually elevating the karmis and demons, So I thought I was all that, because I was elevating these, demons in the grocery store. So we have to be really careful that, we're the servant of the servant of the servant, and for eternity, all of eternity, and we have to practice it now.
And all we can pray really is to be used as an instrument.
Yes,
We are not the person who's actually pulling the strings behind the scenes. We can just simply be asked, allow me to be an instrument.
definitely.
I am a dasa, and anything other than being a das, or dasi, because really we're feminine in our original in our original nature, is an illusion. So Krishna Kirtan, you have your hand up. Please share.
Running out of time, I know. Yeah, Mother Sangita made a very important point that I was contemplating. How powerful Maya is under the guise of in disguise. We think that we are practicing bhakti, but we may be serving Maya. And the same point I was bringing, nowadays we have, I also encourage people, okay, put tilak, everybody. And especially when you go to big temples on festivals, some people will be standing and putting tilak on your forehead. I feel it's very dangerous. Just putting tilak, but your intentional serving Maya, and you misrepresent Krishna consciousness. That, and one person does, 2% does, 5% people do, and everybody think, oh, these people are doing, I can also do that. So basically, it's a very dangerous. So many people can be deviated from the real purpose of where we are, what we are doing, what is our goal. And just putting some tilak and chanting Hare Krishna, I think I'm advanced, and I don't need anybody else. That's a very nice. Thank you, Mother Sangita, for sharing that. I was contemplating how Maya is very strong. But I'm thinking, I don't need anything. I have tilak and I'm chanting Hare Krishna. But maybe my association maybe are people who are not of that devotional caliber. I don't know how to come out of it. Do you have any solution how to come out of it?
Well, they always say it starts with ourselves, right? So the one thing that we can control is our own mindset, our own consciousness. We have to be that example ourselves. Changing others is nearly impossible unless Krishna empowers us to do so. But changing ourselves is hard enough. So we have to at least start with ourselves to make sure that we are set right, that we're set with the right intention of serving Krishna, and that we're purifying our hearts. So that's, I believe, where it begins. And then we can be a little bit more thoughtful in maybe the things that we do, or if we have some influence on, how certain programs are set up or engagements are done, we can be a little bit more thoughtful. Education is really important on the Vaishnava etiquettes, so that we can bring forth this philosophy in a healthy way into society, into our society specifically, so these misconceptions don't happen. Anyway, that's kind of my thought on it. I don't know. Anybody else wants to share?
Prabhupada used to say, do not be a show bottle devotee. That's what he would call it. In other words, become internal, become a real Vaishnava. Do it from the heart. Do the process and the rest will come if you're internal with it. It's an internal process. So, he used to say, chant, dance, when you are tired, take prasadam. It is so simple. Even a child can do it. And he would point to the children. It's a simple process, but on the other hand, it's very intense and it's very deep, and it has to go very deep inside. And that's why he used to say, do not become a show bottle devotee. It's not about the externals and what people think. And yeah, it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very easy to fall into that because of our material consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine, because what are we taught in this material world, right? We have to be the best. We have to achieve the highest. We have to get the highest mark on our grades. We have to be number one in our class. We have to be the first. We have to be the first. We have to be the best. We have to, our names are called, our parents are proud. That's what we're taught. And when we apply that principle to spiritual life, it becomes a mess. We fall right back down into the material pool again.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the best. Everybody's clapping for me. Everybody's, glorifying me. Now I'm a big time manager, or now I'm a big time preacher, or now I'm, everybody wants to hear from me. Everybody wants to hear my kirtan. Everybody wants,
Yeah.
and you start feeling this, and you feel like now I have achieved something.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the RGB. I'm this, I'm that. I have a title. Now you have all these ISKCON initials after your name.
Yeah.
It's if it's increasing your service and it's coming from the heart, then fine, do it, go for it, get trained to do this. But it's not about what it looks like. That's the point. It's not about show bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see this, people join boards and things like that, and then all of a sudden, like things start to change, and you see the way Maya starts to work. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
or they're joining, like you said, RGB, or you're on the the GBC, or you're on a local committee, or you're in this and that, and it all starts with the right intention, but then if the mind, if you can't control your mind, your mind will take you into a place where you start manipulating the situation for a material for a material conclusion, which usually results in satisfying your best interest.
Yes.
Your self-interest, and not Krishna's self-interest, not the interest of the spiritual master.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the danger comes.
Yeah, we start spiraling down. Prabhupada told us either you're going up or you're going down, but you're not staying on the same level in your spiritual life. You have to just keep moving up, So if you're not moving up, where are you going? If you're committing offenses, you're going backwards. So anyway, thank you for a wonderful class.
Thank you for the discussion, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu. Thank you. Mother Sita, initially, you started the conversation with your comment. Thank you. And to all the devotees, thank you. Before we conclude, any last comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Oh, David, thank you. Hare Krishna. I saw your hand there. I missed you.
It brought up thinking about like the devotional creeper of bhakti and keeping the weeds out of the garden that inhibit the growth of the creeper of bhakti, and the weeds are always going to be coming, and we need to constantly check our garden with weed free.
Lord Caitanya gives us that analogy, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but this bhakti garden that is there, it's such a beautiful description of what our spiritual life is like. The weeds, we think we're as Krishna Kirtan is saying, like, we think we're doing devotional service and we're doing the hearing and chanting, but we're also watering the weeds that are there at the same time. And unless we're a gardener and we're willing to extract these weeds of lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, desire for so many unnecessary things, unless we're willing to do that, those things can actually strangle our bhakti creeper. And weeds will grow anywhere, right? You knock down a house and just in the lot, weeds will start growing up the next week. It doesn't take long for a weed to grow. Similarly in the material world, it doesn't take long within our hearts for these weeds to continue to pop up. So it's an active process, like a gardener has to be out there every day. The best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow. Because when the gardener's out there every day, it is constantly pulling the weeds. Sometimes we don't want to do that. We just want to sit back and let everything just happen. And then we look out a couple of months later and say, what happened? What happened to the beautiful garden? Thank you for bringing that up, Dr. David. All right, we should end now. We're late, 9:15. It was a very nice discussion. I'm glad that those that were able to stay on, hopefully you were enlivened by this discussion. And if you'd like to discuss more, we can always do so. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious day. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha, Patitanam Pavanevyo, Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for a nice discussion.
Hare Krishna.
It helps a lot.